The 16th century dawned on a continent teeming with diverse cultures, powerful empires, and complex trade networks. Africa was a land of vibrant marketplaces where merchants traded gold, salt, and other precious commodities. Timbuktu, a city in the Songhai Empire, was not only a bustling marketplace but also a renowned center of learning, attracting scholars from far and wide. Africa was not a monolith, it was a vast expanse of land, home to a multitude of ethnic groups, each contributing to the rich mosaic of African life. From the Berbers in the north to the Zulu in the south, the continent was a living tapestry of human diversity. It was a tapestry of kingdoms, each with its own language, customs, and beliefs. These kingdoms, such as Mali, Ghana, and Benin, had their own unique ways of life, from intricate rituals to elaborate ceremonies that marked important life events. From the Songhai Empire controlling trans-Saharan trade routes, facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas across vast distances, to the Great Zimbabwe in the south, a testament to architectural ingenuity and the organizational prowess of its people, Africa was a continent of immense wealth and cultural achievement. The art, music, and literature of African societies were as diverse as they were profound, reflecting the deep spiritual and philosophical traditions of its people. This vibrant world was about to face a new era, one marked by increasing interaction with European powers. The arrival of Europeans on African shores brought new opportunities for trade but also new challenges and conflicts. This interaction would bring about profound changes, forever altering the course of African history. The transatlantic slave trade, colonization, and the eventual struggle for independence would reshape the continent in ways that are still felt today. The resilience and adaptability of African societies, however, ensured that their rich heritage and cultural identity would endure through the ages. The 16th century saw the rise of the transatlantic slave trade, a dark and pivotal chapter in human history that would shape the destinies of continents and peoples for centuries to come. European powers, eager for labor on their newly established plantations in the Americas, turned to Africa. They sought a workforce to cultivate crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton, which were in high demand in Europe. This marked a turning point, not just in the history of Africa and the Americas, but in the global economy and social structures. The slave trade brought about a new form of exploitation, one that was brutal and dehumanizing. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands, enduring horrific conditions on the Middle Passage across the Atlantic. It tore apart families and communities, decimating populations and disrupting social structures. Entire societies were destabilized, and the ripple effects of this trauma are still felt today. Yet, amidst this tragedy, African kingdoms continued to thrive. Some, like the Asante Kingdom, adapted to the changing dynamics by becoming powerful players in the trade. The Asante Kingdom in present-day Ghana grew wealthy from trading gold and slaves. They leveraged their strategic position and resources to build a formidable empire. They used their power to resist European encroachment, maintaining a degree of autonomy and control over their affairs. Similarly, the Kingdom of Congo engaged in diplomacy, attempting to navigate the treacherous waters of European relations. They sought to balance the benefits of trade with the need to protect their sovereignty and people. These interactions led to cultural exchanges and conflicts, shaping the identities and histories of both African and European societies. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade is complex, marked by both resilience and suffering. Today we reflect on this period with a mix of sorrow and recognition of the strength and resilience of those who endured it. Understanding this history is crucial in acknowledging the past and working towards a more just future. The 17th century witnessed the intensification of the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic. They endured horrific conditions, treated as mere commodities. European powers established coastal forts, solidifying their control over the trade. This period saw the rise of powerful figures like Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. She fiercely resisted Portuguese expansion, fighting for her people's freedom. Despite acts of resistance, the slave trade left an indelible scar on the continent. It drained Africa of its human capital, hindering its economic and social progress. The 18th century was a time of both continued exploitation and burgeoning resistance. The transatlantic slave trade reached its peak, yet voices against this inhumane system grew louder. abolitionist movements gained momentum in Europe and the Americas. In Africa itself, resistance took many forms. There were slave revolts, like the Stono Rebellion in South Carolina. There were also maroon communities established by escaped slaves, seeking refuge and freedom. These acts of defiance highlighted the resilience and agency of African people, even in the face of oppression. Section 5. The 19th century, the Scramble for Africa. This period was marked by a dramatic and aggressive expansion of European powers into the African continent, fundamentally altering its political and social landscape. The 19th century ushered in a new era of European imperialism, the Scramble for Africa. European nations, driven by a desire for new resources and markets, competed fiercely to claim African territories. Driven by industrial ambitions and fueled by racist ideologies, European powers sought to exploit Africa's vast resources. The Industrial Revolution had created a hunger for raw materials, and Africa was seen as a treasure trove waiting to be tapped. European powers carved up the continent. They drew arbitrary borders, often with little regard for the complex tapestry of ethnic and cultural groups that existed. These borders were drawn in European capitals, far removed from the realities on the ground, disregarding existing ethnic and cultural boundaries. This disregard led to long-lasting conflicts and tensions that still affect the continent today. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 formalized this division, with European powers negotiating and dividing Africa amongst themselves without any African representation, marking a tragic turning point in African history. The decisions made at this conference set the stage for decades of exploitation and oppression. This period saw the rise of figures like Samori Toure in West Africa, who led fierce resistance against the French colonial forces. His efforts were a symbol of the broader struggle against European domination, and Menelik II of Ethiopia, who successfully defended his nation against Italian invasion at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. His victory was a rare and significant triumph for African resistance, who fiercely resisted European conquest, demonstrating the resilience and determination of African leaders and their people, fighting to preserve their sovereignty. Despite the overwhelming odds, these leaders and their followers fought valiantly to protect their lands and cultures from foreign domination. Their legacies continue to inspire the ongoing struggle for freedom and justice in Africa. Section 6. Colonialism's impact, exploitation and transformation. Colonialism had a profound impact on Africa. European powers exploited African resources, enriching themselves while leaving Africans impoverished. They imposed their own systems of governance, education, and law, leading to the erosion of traditional power structures and cultural practices. However, colonialism also brought about significant transformations. The introduction of new crops, technologies, and infrastructure had a lasting impact. This period also saw the emergence of a new African elite, educated in European schools and exposed to Western ideas. Section 7. The 20th Century Winds of Change. The 20th century witnessed a wave of independence movements sweep across Africa. World War II weakened European powers, creating an opportunity for African nations to assert their right to self-determination. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana and Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya emerged, leading their countries to independence. This period was marked by both hope and struggle. The legacy of colonialism cast a long shadow. Newly independent nations faced the daunting task of nation-building, grappling with issues of poverty, inequality, and ethnic tensions. The fight for independence was not without its challenges. Many African nations had to wage bloody struggles against their colonial rulers. The Mau Mau uprising in Kenya and the Algerian War of Independence are stark reminders of the human cost of freedom. These movements were driven by a desire for self-determination and a rejection of colonial oppression. They inspired generations of Africans and resonated far beyond the continent's borders. Post-colonial Africa has been a period of both challenges and triumphs. Many nations have struggled with political instability, economic hardship, and social unrest. The legacies of colonialism, such as arbitrary borders and unequal power structures, continue to pose challenges. However, there have also been significant achievements. Many African nations have made strides in improving healthcare, education, and infrastructure. There is a growing middle class and a vibrant entrepreneurial spirit. In recent decades, there has been a resurgence of interest in African culture and heritage. Artists, writers, and musicians are reclaiming their narratives, challenging Eurocentric perspectives and celebrating African identity. This cultural renaissance is redefining what it means to be African in the 21st century. From Afrobeat music to Nollywood films, African creativity is gaining global recognition and inspiring new generations. Africa's journey from the 16th to the 20th century is a testament to its resilience and dynamism. Despite the horrors of the slave trade and the injustices of colonialism, Africans have persevered, shaping their own destinies. The continent's rich history, diverse cultures, and indomitable spirit continue to inspire the world. As Africa navigates the 21st century, it does so with a keen awareness of its past, determined to build a brighter future for generations to come.